Excellent. Okay. So, well, this is the last module in which it's kind of, I'm going to be sharing like a content, we could say, yeah. And the next module, which is the eighth module of integration, which has to do a lot with that eight. The idea is different. The idea is more kind of like for you guys to just share with me just kind of how the course went, what things kind of opened up in your awareness, what things you would like to maybe see. So it's more just kind of like just a feedback, just having a bit of a feedback on the course in general, yeah. But this is the seventh module, in which we are. It has a lot to do. It's very much connected with the previous module we saw, module 6, which had to do with this kind of we could say code that we have as humans, which we call numbers, which is a very good language to kind of see how the structure of space-time is sequenced. Yeah, kind of always remembering that whatever we have as humans, whatever tools we have or capacities we have, abilities we have, they are not kind of created by the humans like independently. It's something that is transferred from the consciousness of Earth to the consciousness of the humans. So it's like there's no such thing as like we invent things. More like things are discovered or transferred. I like that transference. So there's a transference of an aspect of the consciousness of the Earth, which is a very much complex, vast, wider consciousness than the one that we manage as humans. So it kind of transfers a tool, a function, an ability, which we have the capacity in our consciousness to utilize, yeah? Because there is this conversation occurring between the global consciousness of the Earth and each of its aspects, yeah? In the same way, there's a conversation occurring between the organism, yeah, the integral consciousness of my organism with each of its cells, okay? And each of the cells are receiving a little ability of the whole organism. But it's not independent. It's not like that cell of whatever organ it is discovered how to do this, you know, or synthesize, I'm not sure, food into energy or something. You know, it's like, oh, they discovered. No, the organism, it's like that global consciousness, it transferred that ability to that cell in a way, yeah? Because the cells are little functions which are allowing that global consciousness also to exist and to evolve. So this is the way that we have to see us humans with the Earth, or this is the way that I'm presenting it. This is the perspective, that there's no like somehow radical independence between what is happening with the humans and what is happening with the global consciousness of the Earth, because they are part of the same kind of the same movement, yeah. So still, well, and one thing that we were seeing is this aspects of humans in reference with its like extra value or extra ability in comparison with the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. The human kingdom had this ability of managing and also giving interpretations, like producing meaning, like giving meaning, self-conscious meaning to the things. And with that meaning, with that interpretation, they can manage and organize designs. And language has a lot to do with this. Language has a lot to do with this. It's a way of ordering and having a sequence in which we can administrate things. Yeah. So we normally think that like language comes from the culture of the place. Okay. And in one area we could see it that way, but really language comes from an aspect of the consciousness of Earth. It comes more from so it's a deeper. The culture is just a kind of like symptom. It's just a kind of, it's like an effect of that deeper aspects of the global consciousness of Earth. So whatever we see expressed culturally, really there's another layers to see where that is originated, which is the source of that way of being, of that expression, of that format. And well, what we going to see is that, well, we saw the other day that numbers was a very kind of unique code. Let's use it for now, that word. So language is integral to existence. Language, the source of language is, there's something in existence. Like language is more, how can I say it? It is a human tool from what we know on Earth. Language is like animals don't have language in the way we have, okay? They have more like a sound. They don't have concepts and ideas, which they can, they can program a holiday or something, They can't administrate. The languages are very much kind of like something that is just to move something in the moment, with a sound. What we can do with those sounds is have meanings, and those meanings, we can use them in a way that we can administrate something. We can organize something. So language is still in the human, but where like the origin of a language is not. It's in existence. That's like the origin of the source of language. Is existence itself. It's within the structure of existence. And then language is just a kind of like, how can I say? It's just a tool that emerges from that field. It's just a tool. And that tool is not useful for plants. It's not so much useful for animals, but it is useful for this, what we call the human kingdom. This is not absolute, really, because there are languages in the other kingdoms. I'm talking about languages the way that we use it, like this, like sharing meaning, and sharing meaning to shape concepts and things like that. So, like where a language is originated, there's a preview then from like a human discovery or something, or even convention. A human convention, there's something behind that human convention. We see it like we came and agreed this, but there's something where that convention really is just an expression of another level of space-time, of the structure of space-time. So this we are definitely getting into areas which are, let's say, like it has like we could say like deeper areas, and where what happens with these deeper is that it's harder to verbalize. It's harder to verbalize because we are connecting with areas which are pre-verbal. Like it's areas of consciousness that it's not about, you know, words and things like that, but where words are just trying to becoming a vehicle to transmit an area which is not language. Yeah. So so this is going to be the challenge a bit, yeah, of all this. So it's also like you also have to be able to receive what I'm trying to say, not only at the level of words. You see, you have to receive it at a different level, and that level is like, we could say that receive it at a kind of deeper, more intuitive, we could say, level. But the words are trying to carry that flavor. It's like if I'm trying to describe the feeling of hunger, you know, I'm trying to, but you know, so if you're just trying to understand my words, it's like, but if you, through the words, you are able to connect and, okay, I know what that is, hunger. The way and the way that he's explaining to me, I can see that in me. But the experience of hunger, you can't just understand it. You know, it's like you have to go to a different level, which we could say is more a sensorial level. Yeah. So, and the kingdoms help in all this. Yeah, like the kingdoms help in all this. So. So this is the challenge with all this, but we were saying that numbers is it's like a very unique coding, because it's very kind of clean in the way that it sequences an unfoldment. Yeah, it starts with a zero, starts with this kind of zero. Zero is like this round thing where it's like there's no sequence. It's like it's non-linear, isn't it? It's like it's not like a sequence. A sequence in the sense of, you know, like first this, then this. But then when you open, like from that zero, when you look at the numbers, a sequence begins. Yeah, a sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're saying that normally the way that we've seen numbers, we've used that as a tool of measuring quantities, a tool to measure quantities. The way that we're kind of using it here, it's a tool not to measure quantities, but to sequence, to see the sequence or the structure of the consciousness of space-time. It has the sequence of how reality, the structure of space-time and the structure of the consciousness of space-time is in a way sequenced. And it has nothing to do with what you call this, numberology has nothing to do with that, because it's not that one represents or symbolizes something. No, one is, let's say it this way, it's a speed. It's a speed, a frequency, like, you know, the way that we saw the rainbow and all that way. So what I would like to see, I would say when Harold says, so language is integral to existence, I would say language in the way that we understand it as humans, no. But consciousness is integral to existence. So there's a consciousness in everything. Okay. And that consciousness, or that space-time, that reality, that space-time, and that consciousness, which space-time is, you see how they say in physics that you can't really separate space and time, because it's like they are two, it's like it's a flow of two aspects of reality. You can't like say space is over here and time's over here. I would say consciousness is the same. It's kind of like consciousness space-time. You can't separate. You can't say, okay, this space with this time, and then you have consciousness. No, it's like it's the background field of space-time. Space-time is just expressing an aspect of consciousness. But the whole space-time in itself is just a display of the consciousness of nothingness, originally of nothingness. And what numbers are, it's a very good way that we have as humans to see the sequence. It's like if space-time provided, like filtered, a language for for us humans to be able to see its kind of matrix in a way, you know. And this is another thing I'd like to say about numbers, which it's like it's got this beauty, you know, but there's different levels of seeing that beauty, that synchronicity, seeing that that web of how that, what they call language of God or whatever. There's different levels of seeing it. Here, it's not so much about measuring things. It's about the consciousness. It's different. It's like when you see the Fibonacci and all that, yeah, but it's measuring geometries. It's not so much, that is an expression of it, but it's something previous to that, the way that we want to kind of see it, yeah? The Fibonacci and the sacred geometry, of course, it has that expression, but it's just seeing it in patterns, in geometrical patterns. Here is to see it in the consciousness, which generates those patterns. Kind of, it's like it's going back a bit. Well, so just to see these three levels in which we can, where numbers are informing or are expressing consciousness, okay? And I'm not sure if you remember this, that I kind of explained that. There's a kind of a logical fractal in this universe of three positions that are always kind of repeating itself. And let's say the first position is, there's like this absolute position. Then we have what we're going to call a relative position. And then a particular position. Like a particle. Okay? And this is something that repeats itself again and again and again. And well, let's take the example that I used before. Absolute would be my organism. It's the absolute structure. Particle is each cell, each little cell, okay? We could say it that way. Now, what is relative? What is the relative position? It would provide us the format of each cell. So, meaning, really, what exists is the organism and the cells. But then there's a format which provides a differentiation in the function of each cell. So we could say organism, cell, and here we could say like the design of the cell. What type of cell is it going to be? Like, is it going to be a lung cell? So it is providing the format, because not all the cells are the same. They're all connected to the same organism, but they're not exactly the same. So why aren't they the same? Because they have a different relative design format, okay? Now, depending on the scale, this is like what we call a logical fractal. This you're going to see it always. This kind of three positions, yeah. But it depends on the scale that you're looking at. Okay. For example, this is one scale: my organism, each cell in my organism, and then the relative aspect which provides them a format, a function. Let's put different words, like the absolute normally is the income, like the structure, the global structure, okay? So we could say it's kind of like, has this kind of structure feel to it. The particular is more like the contents of that structure, like a content. You see what I mean? The contents. And then the relative is the format. You understand what I mean by format? Like it is the format is the function. It's like the function kind of thing, yeah? Now, these three levels manage different levels of consciousness. It's different, the level of consciousness that a cell is managing than what the global organism is managing. It's like different levels of consciousness. Like a hierarchy, it's like a hierarchy, but not in the, in the sense of who commands. No, it's a hierarchy of communication, of scales, like of, so we can't confuse that the cell hasn't got the global point of view. It hasn't. It's got a different level of consciousness, but that level is not independent from the structure. It's in direct communication, but we do have to differentiate both. Yeah, because if you tell a cell to command the whole body, it's not gonna have that. It's like you're not understanding the hierarchy. Now, there are two scales that, as humans, I think are very important to take. Like two scales, I think is very important. Yeah, one is placing as the absolute, placing Earth. The planet Earth, okay? That is definitely, so Earth would be the absolute. Relative would be the human format. And the particular is your individual content, yeah? So like your individuality, your cell, like your biological vehicle, the David, Susan, the different cells, yeah? But now, so we could say here, let's put is that really, it's our particular individuality, our biological, let's just put vehicle. Okay, this is an important scale. This is an important scale. Well, first of all, we are all connected to the same organism, which is Earth, okay? Now, we have it like, it's very different, the communication that Earth is going to have depending on the format. So it's going to have a different ways of communicating. So if we are humans or if we are cat, we are still both contents of that structure, but there is a different format with which it's going to communicate. Okay, and we are humans, and as humans, we have like a function, a format. Yeah, a format is because we have a function. So we have to understand ourselves as humans, but understand that we are connected to a consciousness that transcends our humanity. You see that one thing that I see that science is trying to do, for example, science is trying to understand the earth, but from, it's like it places its human aspect as an absolute factor to understand the earth. And it creates a lot of like, for example, one typical thing of consciousness is that, of science, is if it, as it takes the human as the absolute point, it sees itself as that which has the consciousness on which it's looking at the world. It's like if it takes itself as the global consciousness through which it's looking at the world. You see, the problem is that it's only going to be able to interpret according to its point of reference, which is its human. Now, one different thing is a human recognizing itself as human, but recognizing itself connected to a global consciousness. That changes things a lot, because there you know that you are receiving a consciousness. You are receiving a consciousness and you are converting it into a human position. So you understand that that reality, which is that structure of reality, which is containing you, has a consciousness in itself, and you receiving that. So you receiving that consciousness, and then you are modulating it into a human consciousness, and then a human language or whatever it is. But you are a receiver. You're not the initial point. You see, you're not the initial point trying to. So you are understanding that you have a relative access, not a total access, a relative access. So it's not me, human, trying to understand the universe. It's the universe using a human to understand itself. Okay, that's very different. The two ways of, and you see, just by that perspective, everything changes. Everything changes because you position yourself in a more kind of, first, I think in a more real position, yeah. And then it's what happens is this, is that you can expand the consciousness of your human format because you're connected to something which transcends it. But if you start from the human format, you don't expand it, you just refine it. You refine. And you think that more contents, knowing more about more little things is more consciousness. It's like a wider perspective. Okay, well, so we have structure, format, contents. Another scale which is important for us to take is this. This scale is taking the sun as the absolute, okay? The earth as the relative, because if you see, the earth is just the aspect of the, more than the sun, which of course, because the sun is the nucleus, I would say the solar system, okay? But the nucleus, like the central nervous system, is in the sun, okay? So that's why I put the sun, but it's the whole system. It's like the whole organism, that big cell, which we call the solar system, yeah? Earth is a relative position there. You see how it changed depending on the scale? Because Earth is rotating around that nucleus. Now, Earth there is relative to the sun, in a way. It's an aspect of the sun. It's like a format of the sun. And in there, we take our vehicle, okay? The particular is always the same because it's always where we are as an existing being. It's never, that doesn't change. You have to be very clear about it. You can't put human here, because it doesn't, or you have to know where you are positioned individually. individually. That's like something, if you don't have that location, then you're going to be very confused, because that has to be clear. You know, what I call me, David, in this position, in this body, and that has to be clear. Now the scales of relationship are different. Yeah. So sun, earth, the vehicle. So this means the same as, okay, or equal. Very important, this. So numbers, is that, you know, some people say, are numbers frequencies? At this level, yes. Because this is one thing, yeah, okay. So let's take what Harold said, like language is inherent to existence. Let's take like consciousness is inherent to existence, but they use different, let's say a different alphabet for now, okay? It's the best way I can say it. They use a different alphabet. Now, vehicles is individuality then, yes, yeah. And that has to be very clear. We have to be very, 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 very clear with that, like where I am positioned as an individual. Because if that is not clear, you're going to be lost with the rest. It's like I have to be very aware that where, like David, I have to be very aware of that individual aspect. From there, I can relate to different scales. But that is, you know, that's where the antenna is placed. I can't be confused about that. You know, I have to know that. I have to take it. I have to say, okay, yeah, this is the vehicle. This is the. So if I don't locate the antenna, well, it doesn't matter what we could say. What radio stations I want to tune into. It's not. It's not. The radio is in position. So the radio has to know where it is. That's why I say the particular has to be very clear. You have to be very clear with this. Okay. You know, also there's a lot more things, but I don't want to confuse. I would prefer to keep it, you know, a bit more simple than, because if I go too much into the little details, I think which is okay. It has a high level of accuracy, but it gets confusing. So I'm going to try avoid that. Okay. Now they manage different, let's say, different languages. Let's say different alphabets. Let's go with this one, which we know very well. This one, the language, it translates consciousness into frequencies. So somebody who is positioned from its consciousness in this place, it's going to say that everything is frequencies. They're going to say like, just, you know, everything is like frequencies, wave frequencies, vibration. Okay. So from this point of view, yes, it's frequencies. Okay. But if we go to more the format, it's not frequencies in only. There's another level, another alphabet, which is it's codes. So here it's going to see it more like energy, and here it's going to see it more like information, like in computer, you know, it's like coding. There's no frequency. There's just coding, and it has information. Then that information is going to use a frequency, and it's going to have it's going to emit a type of program. You see, so according to the coding, you're going to have a frequency expression of it. Now, codes, it's not about vibration and things like that. It's more about logic, and it's a different alphabet. Okay. Does that mean that this is disconnected to this? No way. It doesn't mean that. But when you're trying to reduce everything to frequencies, you're going to be short. You're going to be short because it's not the origin of things on frequencies. Frequencies, it's something. It's more an effect than, yeah. So there's this like kind of matrix. You know, the matrix is just be like these codes, kind of thing. Now, absolute it's not codes. It's something that, to put it in a name, it's parameters. It's even more subtle than codes. It's parameters. And so if this is more about how things vibrate, frequencies, how they feel, okay, which is very important. This is not so much like that. It's more how it's more about coded, how it's like the information aspect of it. Now this parameters is about the consciousness. It's more like consciousness. It's like a different scale, we could say, yeah. So parameters, absolute, codes, format, frequencies, contents. So we could say there are parameters of the structure, then that is converted into codes which make a format, and then those codes begin to emit a vibration, which is a frequency of the content. So if you position in a content, very much in the perspective of the content, life is going to go through the vibration, the feel of things, not so much the coding. So this is one thing that's interesting, is that people or different people are placed in different perspectives. Some people see things more through the kind of frequency level, others through the coding, and others through the parameters. Yeah, parameters is much more in tune. It's much more. It's like if it has. It's more direct connection with consciousness. Coding is a bit more indirect. It's more like a conversion, and frequency is just a kind of living expression of it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into it, but the format has a double face, I call it. A format has the possibility of, it had the double face of the format is two things it has. It has a design and a model. No, but I think that it'll get too confusing if I say that. So just for this to be there, maybe you don't really get it now, but probably it's going to help at the background. Okay, and depending on the scale you're using, yeah. For example, my organism is an absolute for me, but for the earth, it's a content. You see what I mean? So, and the earth, we could see it as our global organism, but for the sun, the solar system, it's a content of that structure, and so on. If we keep on going, so the absolute of the absolute is nothing and everything. Those are the complete absolutes, yeah. But we can't understand things just by saying nothing and everything and something. We need to, in space-time, we need to use scales, like a Russian doll, scales, yeah. Because if we don't use scales, it's like, okay, I'm saying, look, I'm the consciousness of nothing expressed in everything, but I'm the consciousness of nothing in everything through a something. But I want to know where the bakery in my neighborhood is. Do you think that scale is going to be useful? Like to know where the bakery is in my neighborhood? No, I can't use that scale. It's just too wide. So I have to know that this is the important thing. That scale is always in the background. But I have to, if I want to know where the bakery is in my neighborhood, I have to go to a different scale. Because if I can't work, if not, in that scale. So this is also but it has the same logical structure. Like, for example, a continent, like let's look at the land, okay? Okay, I'm going to use this to connect with where I'm going with all this, okay? Now, if you see because what we're going to use in numbers, or the way that we're going to see numbers, it's like if it is the language of how space-time, the consciousness of space-time, is sequenced. Or at least it's the best thing we've got as humans, from what we know. It's like the best thing that has the best transference that space-time has given us. Probably there's something better. There's a different, but we don't have it, so we have to use what we have. So probably the numbers is the best thing we have. So and it's a way of how the structure, the consciousness of the structure of space-time organizes things, but organizes space and organizes time. Okay. Now, how is numbers going to help us to see how space is organized? Well, first we have to take into consideration what space are we playing in, like in what space are we linked to? What space are we in direct contact with? Well, that's the Earth. Because, okay, we are in contact with the sun, but not in direct contact. You see, we're not like parts of its body. In the unfoldment, yes, but now we're on this one strange rock. It's like just to see how science can look at a planet. I think that title summarizes it. It's one strange rock. It's like not one strange consciousness. No, it's just one strange rock thing. Going over. Okay, so space, when we're looking at numbers and how numbers are giving us information about the organization of space, it's very important to see in which space we are playing a part in. So that's Earth, okay? Earth space. Now look, Earth. If we want to see the space of Earth, first we have to see that on what space of Earth are we? We are on the membrane. We are on like the superficie, yeah? We're in the outside. We're not in the inside. We're in the outside. But if you see, we have the inside, we have the middle, and we have the outside. You see? 3 parameters, again, or 3 levels. So first, we're on the outside, okay? And the outside is organized mainly in areas of water, areas of land, areas of water, areas of land. Now, let's take just the areas of land, okay? How do we organize, as humans, how do we organize the areas of land, of territory? We organize it as continents. In those continents, we have countries, and in those countries, we have cities. So it has the sequence also, where the continents is like that structure of which is including that country, and that country has little parts which are cities, and so on and so forth. We can do that fractal movement again in a lower scale, in a smaller scale. Okay. So, what is a continent? It is an aspect of the land of the organism, Earth, of that global brain, which has that specialized or that aspect of its consciousness. So it's as if each point in the superficie, so we are all connected to this centralized consciousness here, and each, let's see it as a global brain, yeah? And each point here it touches a different area of the brain. It touches a different area of the brain, okay? Meaning each area it touches, it has a specific tuning, it has a specific parameter. It has a specific use of consciousness, okay? But it is a global brain, so it means it is working all together. Yeah. Well, the interference is what doesn't allow that global functioning to occur. That's one of the things that it does. Yeah. It creates. It doesn't create interconnectivity, which is the organic thing that space-time does, interconnectivity. It creates what could we say? Like, instead of saying, oh, you are different, meaning you are a different function of the Earth, the translation of the interference is you are different, meaning I have to kill you. Okay, so, or you're a threat. So that is one of the translations, yeah. So normally what is different at the beginning, it's a threat, but if you understand that it's just, yeah, like that's a disconnection, isn't it? It's like a clear example of disconnection. Seeing something that belongs to the same organism, but something translates that difference not as an interconnection of functions, but as who is the one that has to dominate. Like if it's a battle, like if the differentiation, it's a battle, you see? And the differentiation in an organic sense isn't a battle, it's a sophistication of interconnectivity. The more interconnectivity something has, the more differentiation it has. You see? So it's like, for you to get an idea, us as humans, what is the thing that brings us together? You know, like all the countries, it brings us together to celebrate something we do together. The Olympic Games. And the Olympic Games is about like who's gonna win what, like, which I love because, see, I'm not against the interference in the sense that I don't see it as a problem, but I do see it that is not the, like the interference can't be there has to be a limitation for the interference. See, the interference is a tool of expansion. Because when you interfere with something organically, you force something to be aware of how it really works. Okay, so it's a tool. It's like an education tool. To see how it really works, I have to see how it works bad. Like it doesn't work well. So there's a level of us that enjoys the interference. Because we are, we have it in us, and another thing about the interference, which is important, it's not like a family or the way that I'm expressing it. Eh? It's not like this race, or it's not. Maybe a family kind of is. It has it's like they play an important role of the interference to be expressed, okay, or a race or whatever it is, but that's not where it's generated. It's in all of us. The only thing, there are certain players that are going to express it very much like intensively because they have to, because that's the only way of kind of saying, wow, that's an interference, isn't it? But basically, it's intensified because that allows each of us, the way that you dismantle an interference, it's a self-dismantling. It's not like dismantling some family or some race or something over there. They just a projection. So the dismantling And why would we want to dismantle the interference? Because behind it, there's a we gain awareness, self-awareness. Yeah. So any dismantling, any undoing of the interference is a self-undoing, self-dismantling. Okay, this said, let's go for a little break. And now I'm going to go on to how we can see the expression of the global consciousness of the Earth on the territory, like on the continents, countries, and cities. How do these kind of express that distribution or that sequence of the parameters of the global consciousness of Earth? Okay. So we'll get into that. This is just kind of warming up, and it's very important to see these three also, yeah, because it makes all the other things make sense. So let's take it for 5 minutes, okay? 5 minute break, and we'll lock, or 10 minutes. Let's make it 10 minutes, and we come back, okay? Recording. Yeah. Very good. I like the way Therese kind of made sure, like, I've been a good student, you know, I've been watching you. Okay, I won't send a note to your parents then. Okay, so now, at this moment, we're going to see the frequencies of space. And in the next last part of the conference, we'll see how the frequencies of time are organized, okay? Or the tools we have as humans to connect with that organization that Earth is doing, okay? Because this is one thing about, especially with time, the scales of time that Earth and the Sun are managing are way wider than the scales of time that us humans can manage, because it has to do with our capacity to process time. And of course, Earth manages wider scales of time, much wider, okay? So we can just have a little peek in that. And the peak is what the tools that have been transferred to us, okay? But let's go with the, so now what we're going to see is the frequencies of space, okay? So again, whenever we want to see something, we have to see what scale we're talking about. We're talking about the scale of where we are positioned on the Earth is in the membrane, okay? The outer area. So using the scale of, and we are land creatures, we are not sea creatures, okay? So seeing the scale of the land, of how the land, the territory is organized, and how each part, each aspect of the land is fulfilling a function expressed through the human, but expressed through that territory of the Earth consciousness, yeah? And what tool are we going to be using to kind of be able to look through numbers? What tool are we going to be using which uses a number coding to see this? Well, what we're going to be seeing is the telephone codes, And the telephone codes, what is a telephone code? Yeah, an international telephone code. It's the way that one country speaks
David, can you hear me? David?
Yeah, Sue, I think my guess is he disconnected.
It looks like it, doesn't it? I've opened my... it says recording at the top still, though. If you look on the top right-hand side of my screen, it says recording.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But it's funny because he's hosting, but we're still here. So I don't know. Maybe we're just...
He's in another dimension.
Yeah.
You're laughing a lot.
He has just ascended, and now he returns.
How was it? How was it?
Suddenly I come back and everyone's laughing. I'm like, what have I missed? Yeah.
David,
It was a joke at your expense.
Exactly. That's it. I can notice the frequency of the tone.
Okay, she's back.
we didn't know where you were hosting from. David.
Okay.
David, everything you've got on the board there, we haven't heard.
Okay.
None of that we've heard. None of it.
Okay, so I'll repeat that. Yeah. Is it recording? Yes, it's recording. Okay. It's recorded, by the way, guys. I can hear you what you said. I'm sorry. We're in a very non-private world now. Okay, let me go back. Okay, I'm not sure how back I have to go, but it's what we're going to use for this space. You know, the frequencies of space, because now we're looking at space. Let me just put that on how the space is organized. Yeah, in relation to us as humans, and what tool can we use as with numbers, which uses a number language, to become aware of how each country and how each continent is expressing an aspect of the global consciousness of the Earth. Okay, like if it was like this, like the global consciousness of the Earth has different, you know how the organism has different systems, like the digestive system and so on and so forth, and then each system has like an organ. Well, we could say it like the global consciousness of the Earth, and we could say each continent is like a system, okay? And in that system, it has different organs that makes it work, which would be the countries, okay? And then so on and so forth. But what tool can we use is the telephone codes, okay? The telephone codes. And the telephone codes, it's not like a human convention. In one area, it's a human convention, but in another area, it's a filtration of the Earth consciousness, okay? It's a filtration of the Earth consciousness. So let's take the telephone codes, all right? What are they for? What is the purpose of the telephone code? It's for me to be able to call another country, let's say Holland. I have to dial in a specific number to be able to communicate with that country. And if I don't dial that number, I can't connect with that country, okay? And see how it's organized, yeah? The international codes. So first of all, I have to dial 00, okay? What does that mean? I have to start, the way that I'm saying it, yeah? I have to start with taking into consideration that the code I'm going to call is an aspect of the global consciousness of Earth, okay? So that 0 is like that center global consciousness, like the central nervous system. So I'm here in Argentina and I want to call here Holland, but I have to go through the Earth to do that connection. But then not only the 0, I need to go to that 0, which interconnects all the you know, all the sphere, I also have to dial which point of the brain I want to connect with. So Holland would be 31, for example, okay? So there I connect with that. So the telephone codes, in the way that we use it, is for me to communicate with another country, okay? For me to be able to communicate with another country. But from the point, but also if we could also see it like this, and it has a coding in it. It has like a coding in it. It has a filtration of the parameters of the Earth, of how that point of the brain of the Earth is expressing a function, a frequency, a coding, okay, a parameter. Yeah. So the best way to explain this and organize this is, first let's go through the continents. Yeah, I'm going to put an image here. Wait, no, I have to open it first. Okay, so I'll go here, share photos. Can you guys see that?
Yes. David, I'm not sure if I'm jumping ahead, but you have on the board 0, 0. So is the sun at play in that?
I don't take this, probably, it's a good way of saying it, yeah.
I am seeing sun to earth, then to, so it dials in the location from the sun position first.
You know that I've never seen it that way, but actually it makes a lot of sense, because this is the thing about Earth, okay? The space of Earth, in its location in the solar system, is in communication with the nucleus, in the same way that each aspect of the organism, it's in direct communication with the organism. So the way that Jeff just put it, I've never seen it that way, but from, you see, and also when the body responds, you know, you can notice that there's something there. I've got goosebumps. Yeah. So I feel that that does make sense, because there's 2 zeros, not 1.
Right.
So it's like the sun with the global consciousness of the Earth and an aspect of the global consciousness of the Earth. You see, this is also very important here. Like, when something makes sense, it doesn't only make sense at we could say at an intellectual level. It makes sense in the whole body. It's like the whole body kind of senses that and says,
David, if you can hear us, I think we lost your audio. Interference.
David, can you hear us?
Yeah.
He's left the planet again.
Yes.
Hasn't he?
God, he keeps fading in and out.
He keeps going on.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Where is he?
remember it's recorded.
David, where are you going?
I'm going to the center of the sun and back, probably. Okay, let's see it there. Okay, so you guys can see that, all right?
Yes.
See if I could go closer. Can you see it going closer?
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good.
One thing that's interesting also in the organizational space, I didn't see it. You see how that the brain has a left and a right? You see that I said that Earth is like a global brain? And you see that we have, before I go into this, I'm going to explain this because this is important. And I didn't look at it. There, okay. Let's just take this kind of global brain and with the center here, okay, in a way. And in its projection in the superficie, yeah, it has, well, this is the kind of equator, isn't it? The equator, which is a 0 in the latitude, and then we have kind of the 0 in the longitude. Okay. Well, the 0 in the latitude is it's not a convention. It is basically it's the center of the Earth and the equator. Yeah, that's why it's so hot normally on the equator, isn't it? So that's that 0 there. This 0 here, well, basically the one that we conventionally use is Greenwich. But there's another one we take into consideration. I'm not going to go too much into it, which is also Paris, because, well, at the time it was between taking Paris or taking Greenwich, which at the end, conventionally, we chose Greenwich, but Paris is also a reference point. Okay, now there's something that this organizes, it doesn't it? And it's a north, okay, and a south. Yeah, a north and a south, and then an east and a west. But also we could, like seeing it this way, we could say like a left, a right, and like a 4 quadrants. These that we say south here, these two south is going to be more like representing, it's going to be more representing the areas which are more like, we could say lineal in a way, yeah? And the north, it's more like the non-lineal. But then we have a left and a right, like the left brain and the right brain, yeah? And there we have the southeast and southwest in English. I'm going to put it in English, east and west. And this organizes 4 quadrants, okay? And this left brain, right brain, this is very important for another things that I'll be explaining. It's not so important for what I'm going to be explaining now, but it is different, the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere. But in the sense that it's like a different location of the brain, and it's also different the east and the west, okay? The western and the eastern. It's not only a cultural thing, yeah? There's a difference in the kind of the placing of the brain, of the areas of the global brain, okay? Just to take that into consideration there in the background, yeah? But now let's go with this image, which I have to open again, wait. Open the scale there. Okay. Good. So what we have is these telephone codes, okay? And this is more about the territory. For example, this explanation here is about the whole thing with water and everything. Yeah? This is more about looking at the territory scale. And as you can see, each continent is kind of like, it's got its own number. 0 sun, 0 earth, yeah? And then we have that area, like it's the system of that area. So if you see in +1, look at that areas like that northern part of America. I know that we also got Mexico there, but it's very interesting, like the Mexico, the Latin aspect, yeah, which is still North America, but it's in the Latin kind of, you know, speaking. From there downwards, it's 5, yeah. But on the top, on the northern part of what we say America, Alaska, Canada, and other different areas, that would be 1, okay, frequency 1. Now, inside that, we have 1, because, well, let's go bit by bit, because if not, it's going to be too much. So, +1. What does that mean? You know, what does that mean? That part of the territory is going to be expressing more the band 1 of consciousness. What is the band 1 of consciousness? It's kind of like where everything is expressed, like where all the levels come together and express a reality. Yeah. So this aspect of, let's take different examples where this is expressed in the culture, okay? But what I want to connect is how the culture is expressing something that is from this kind of parameter. Yeah. So 1 is where everything comes together and is expressed and is projected, it's seen. Yeah. And I feel that, you know, the American movies, like Hollywood, all the world watches the American movies, you know, like it's or the American elections. It's like the whole world is waiting to see the American elections. And I don't think this only has to do with kind of like because it's one of the most powerful countries in the world and so on and so forth. I think it's because it's where we are seeing ourselves in our states of consciousness expressed. So whatever 1 expresses, it's kind of like showing the synthesis of the global consciousness in that, okay? So movies are a good way of seeing this. A movie is like a projection where everyone is seeing and looking and watching that kind of Hollywood, you know, kind of emits to the world. Or the elections, and everyone is aware, you know, everyone knows who are the candidates in Americans' elections. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. You know, like you say, okay, China, or nowhere else in the world are people aware of, or so aware, or so like, we always know who are the 2 candidates, you know? So it's like the election, and it's kind of like us seeing what is the expression of the global consciousness at this point, you know? Meaning that Trump is kind of like expressing, you know, where we are at. There's 2 things that 1 can do. 1 can show a reality or show a fantasy. This is the thing we also have to understand with each code. It has like what we call a functional use and a dysfunctional use. So what can 1 show? 1 can show a reality or a fiction, like a theater. And this happens with your life. You know, you are showing to the people, you're expressing what? Your reality or your fiction. You see? So, and it's very important when we're seeing these codes that there's no such thing as good, bad. There's no such thing as better, worse, because it just doesn't make sense to see it that way. You know, like you can't see like the liver as, is the liver better than the heart? Is that, it's not the right way of seeing it. Is what's good is, how does the liver work? How does the liver don't work? So how is it functioning well, and how is it functioning not that well? How does the heart, I'm not sure what I said before, the lungs, how do they work well and how do they work not that well? And only through diseases and dysfunctions of the organ is actually the way that we learn how it works better. You see, that's the function of the interference. It's interfering the functional use of that, but in order to create a contrast, so we can see how it actually is functioning. Because space-time, or this kind of play of reality, or this kind of reality, it's not so much about things working well. It's about becoming aware of who we are. It's more about expanding consciousness. And sometimes a very good tool, it seems like a very good tool because it works, is to see it through errors, to see it through interferences, through mistakes, through dysfunctions. So you see, this bad good thing kind of dissolves a bit, because it's just that dysfunction thing is a contrast, and it allows us to have a contrast, to become aware of how it works. So it's not about goodies versus enemy. It's not about, you know, this kind of like bad against good thing. It's that the dysfunction is helping in us to become aware or expand awareness of our function, of our coherency, you know. So each is going to have a more kind of functional expression and a dysfunctional expression. Yeah? So one, remember, it's and remember, this is I'm using culture to explain as an effect something that is underneath the culture, you know. So it's expressing a symptom, yeah, meaning that what we know of the potentials of plane one is not what we know only of the culture of North America. That is what we know up to now, but there's a lot of things that are in the future of that code. Yeah, this is very important. That so is dysfunction? Yes. Is it intentional? I saw international. I from the point of the structure consciousness, dysfunction is intentional. But we, as contents of the structure, a lot of our dysfunctions are not intentional. You know, we do it unintentionally. We just kind of carry it out, and then we realize, oh, that's dysfunctional. And this is also kind of important. We're not supposed to hide the dysfunction. It's like we have to allow it to express, to be able to see it. So this is something that, you know, like probably religion has been the greatest interference there is, because it turns it all around. It actually says, if you express the dysfunction, you have to be punished. So what you have to do is to control it and suppress it and, you know, hide it. And so it turns it around. So it's actually when you are able to express the dysfunction, and when you allow the dysfunction to be expressed in the context, then that's where it becomes not a blind spot, but it becomes a lucid point. It becomes, you can see it. So when it's expressed, then you can, I'm not sure, in a way you can see the dysfunction, so you can take the dysfunction as a tool to make it more functional. So it's like, how can I say it? Like, just imagine every time my phone makes a mistake, I turn like this and I don't want to see it. Well, if you don't want to see it, then how can you become aware that it's there? You see, that's kind of like religion when it's done. It's anything that is what they call a sin. It's something that mustn't be expressed, you know? So what happens is that when you don't express it, it ends up expressing itself, but through violence. Okay, so it's like instead of expressing itself through little things, domestic things, when all the domestic realities are hiding it, it becomes, there has to be a more global expression of it, I feel like, these shootings that happen in the schools, that it's very common in America, isn't it? I feel that is, like, the kids that end up doing that, they don't do it intentionally. It's not under their control. It's like because it isn't being able to be expressed, like in a dosis, dosified, because that is not happening and there's more repression than expression, there are these volcanoes, I call, like these, where all the lava goes through them. So they express something which is being hidden in the global domestic line. So it's not, you see, this is the thing, is that if you allow it to express, you express it in a dosified way, where of course it comes out, like, well, we could say that it's not, the interference isn't a lovely flavor, okay? It's not nice when it is expressed or when it goes through you. But when you do allow it to express, it's like if you don't hold the steam down. So it kind of dosifies the way that it comes out. So you can manage it. But if that's not happening, that type of things occur, like these very violent things, Well, I think those are communications for all of us to kind of see, it's communications for us to look at what are we not allowing to be expressed, what interference we're not allowing to go through us. So it's more about hiding the error than expressing the error. So okay, so one, America is a very important code because it's where things are expressed. I like to take 1 and 7 because it's like the particular and the absolutes, 1 and 7. So let's go to 7 because there's something interesting with the telephone codes with 1 and 7. They are the only two codes that don't have, like, if you take, for example, Africa, you have 27, you have 258. So you have this, and then you have like an unfoldment of it. Like now, the only two codes that don't have that, what America does have is this. It has 1 and it has this, differentiating different areas, but it hasn't got 12, 11, 12, 13, 14, it hasn't got that. But also, the other one that hasn't got that is Russia, 7. 7 doesn't have 71, 72, 73, and all that. So it's like they are integral numbers. 1 and 7 are like integral. And because you see, this is the thing. 7 has all the frequencies, but in like abstract, like nothingness, like all the frequencies, but in abstract. 1 has all the frequencies, but in a concrete individuality. This is another thing. The whole thing of American, the individual thing. I think that also comes because 1 is the code of individuality. It's the particular. It's an individual. So there's a high level of respect for the individual. And I believe it comes from this thing over there. Now, you probably see it as a cultural thing, but like what I'm trying to take you is that, no, there's something underneath that cultural thing, So they have this great respect for individuality, and the individual thing. The problem is when it's all individual, there can be a feeling of like atomization, like if disconnection, you know, it's so individual that there's no like global thing that's containing that individuality. So that's where it gets dysfunctional, you see? And the big fights, we could say, the big clash historically in the 20th century and all that, and also understand this is what we're seeing now, the level of consciousness that we have now, have been between these two. You know, like this USA.
Is David frozen again?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, he's disappeared again, hasn't he? I tell you, he's off to 7, I think.
Yes.
No sé. Back again. Where did I leave you guys?
In the USA.
USA, Russia. Okay, all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, USA.
It's like I go to non-existence and come back. Yeah. So let's see. Remember in the
No, we could. I had
a way to explain in it.
Where's my control here? So I can move that here.
Do you remember this? So we had 1 here and 7 here. And you see, this is the thing. 7 is where an absolute where originates, but it all goes through 1. See? 7 plus 1, 8.
Yes.
So this is the thing, is that the organism is made out of individual things. They are both compacted together. And if you look into one cell, it has the information of the whole thing, doesn't it? Like in one cell, it has the information of the whole organism. So there is a very big link between 7 and 1. So 1
What a face he's got. What an expression. Caught on camera, David. Honestly. This is a hard subject for him to be dealing with. Jeff, does he know he goes? Do you think he knows he goes? Does he know?
No, I don't know.
You don't know you go.
It just comes and goes. There must be some, there has been some problems in the internet antenna, but I thought it was all solved. I think it still has this, still having these problems, but
yes,
okay, I'm going to try
stopping.
to explain again. Okay. So Russia and USA. So this is the thing, like the whole information of the organism is within each cell. And actually the cell is, the cells is what makes the organism. So it's like they directly connected, 7 and 1, yeah? And if you, this is something I always say, like if you look, because USA and Russia, they see themselves as rivals, don't they? Like historically, they see like themselves as two, like the Cold War kind of thing, you know, like this, and it just is a very clear expression of our disconnection, and it's how the part sees itself disconnected with the whole. and how the whole sees itself disconnected with the part. 7, 1, okay? Structure, content. And if we see, you know, like USA, it is inside the name of Russia. You see, it has USA. So it's like, this is sometimes, and you know, the president of Russia is Putin, no? But it's like put in, like put me in, and you'll see me. That because 7, this is a thing that a friend of mine says, that the structure, there's 2 types of structure. There's a structure which contains me from outside, which is like the macro, but then there's a structure that contains me from within inside, which is the subatomic, the micro, the micro. So we have the macro structure and the micro. Sorry guys. It's breaking down a lot. I'm not sure where I left. How does to macro structure and the micro? Okay, so really when I put this like structure, it was like absolute position, particular position, and relative position. The structure, I would put it on both sides. It's like there's a structure that contains both sides of it. So it's, let's put it like this. So there's a structure, a macro structure. Then we have the relative position, particular position, and then a structure again. And this structure are just 2 levels of the same thing. One is, like I say, macro structures, and then there's micro structures. So we could say like more subatomic, and the other one is, but they are connected, they are in dialogue, yeah, the both of them. So if we break this, like 7 and 1 are, you know, like in a disconnect, the global and the particular, like the structure and the content aren't speaking with each other. See how it is? So the content feels like isolated, yeah. And then the global is going to feel that the individuality isn't important. So why respect their rights, kind of thing? You know, like I use them. It's so what happens when they come together? You know, when USA sees that in the word Russia, it has USA in the other way around, yeah? And here we have the RI, which I'm not going to explain now. Sorry, guys. Coming and going. Okay, did you follow me up to the point of saying, 7 plus 1 is 8?
No.
No,
No.
it stopped when you drew the re on the board.
Okay. Well, okay, what is this expressing? Like the 7 and 1, that they can't see each other within each other. It's like a disconnect between the global or the structure with the content, and the content with the structure or the global. There's like this disconnect. So the individual feels isolated, like atomic, isolated, and the global doesn't see the respect for the individual. But if they come together, like the unfoldment is together and separate at the same time, so 7 and 1 at the same time, there we have 7 plus 1, 8. 8. 8 is like the synchronization between all the dimensions, which go from the global to the particular, from the particular to the global. So 8 is like it's a breathing 8. It's like taking from the structure to the particular, and from the particular providing to the structure. It's an exchange. It's an intercommunication. 8. And 8 is related to the code 8 to all the Oriental countries. Like the Oriental countries have the 8. And the 8 is kind of like, you see this yin yang kind of thing? It's like black and white, and like this dance between black and white. And it is like how the two opposites are together talking, like the apparently opposite is actually in a dialogue, in a flow. So 8 does that. I call it the connective tissue. It's like a connective tissue. 7 is global position, 1 is particular position, and 8 is connective tissue. So, like if we take China, for example, 86, it's like synchronizing all the potentials. So it's like a connective tissue of distribution around the world kind of thing, yeah? And this yin-yang kind of concept comes where? From the Oriental, from these 8 codes, yeah? Let me put the... Are you guys still there?
Yes.
Good. So 8, it's like they're in red, if you can see 8. Okay, so now you see we have the particular, we have 7, which is like this more kind of global point of view. You see, when 7 isn't in dialogue with 1, it becomes like a dictator. When the absolute doesn't care about the individual, it becomes like it has this kind of a totalitarian thing to it, yeah? And if 1 doesn't dialogue with the global, it has this kind of like isolated individual little me thing, like disconnect, like a feeling of disconnect. So that's when you break 7 and 1, well, 8 has this, 8, it has this kind of interconnectivity between the abstract, the concrete, between the global, the particular, it's the connective tissue. It's like a connective tissue, yeah? Between past and future, left and right, this 8 of infinity. It like it connects all the things, like this dance of opposites. It's where the opposites are in dialogue, okay? Let's see. My phone just asked me to do several 8s today to calibrate it. Good. And this is something which is interesting because your context is always having a communication with you. Yeah. And if you are aware, there's nothing that's happening by chance. Maybe you don't have the language to make sense of it, but nothing is really happening by chance. It's all communicating with and it's really interesting. Okay, so, and now what is 9? Okay, so we have 7, the global, 1, the individual, 8, which connects them, but 9 is what for? 9 is like the purpose, the finality. What is the direction? That's why 9 is the last number, because it's all about a purpose. You see, non-linearly, you have to see the numbers the other way around. It all starts at 9 with a purpose. If there's a purpose, then 8 synchronizes unfoldment, which goes from 7 to 1. See, so these 3 are very, like these 4 are very important, you know, 7 global, 1 particular, 8, which is like this interconnectivity thing, this yin yang dance, and 9 is like the purpose, the finality. Now, 9 is more this, what do you call it in English? In Spanish, it's Oriente Medio, Middle East, isn't it? Middle East, Middle East. The Middle East, you know. Of course, I'm summarizing a lot, you know, there's a lot more to see, but 9 is where the main religions have come from. The main religions of the world have come from 9. And it's like the purpose of being alive, isn't it? The purpose of being alive. And if the interference is going to get itself in some place, it's going to interfere the purpose. It's going to change the purpose. So it's going to tell you, the religions, you are here. I'm summarizing a lot, okay? I know, but just get me the concept. You are here to do the important thing of being here is to go into this mystical heaven place, you know, like it's not about making a contribution in the existence. It's about seeing how the hell I can get out of here, because this is a trap. This is like existing as a trap. How the hell can I get out of here to go to this, you know, mystical place? And you see, for me, it's the other way around. It's actually, for me, it's not, it's actually taking the awareness of everything, of nothing, and bringing it into this existence. It's the other way around, that religions are saying, get out of here. And I think the purpose is express totality here. It's not about leaving. It's not about getting the hell out. It's about bringing in. It's more about bringing it here to the existence, you know? So, okay, so 9 is the purpose, okay? And the purpose of why we exist. So if you see, it's like, how the hell, like everywhere in the world, these religions have reached everywhere in the world, because it's like the global purpose. You know, I do believe that religions have filtration, meaning that it's not all, but there's a high level of interference in a lot of it. There's a high level of interference, because interference has to give you a bit of truth. If not, you won't swallow it, you see? And again, it's not about baddies. It's about Okay, here I'm back again. Where did I leave it? It's not about baddies. Okay, so I wasn't too far out. What time is it? Oof. I'm way out of time. Well, okay, so yeah, it's not about baddies and goodies and all that. It's about dysfunction is allowing us to see become. It's like a challenge. It's like a kind of challenge to be aware of the function. Yeah. And you see how this whole thing of like religions in the background is like this beautiful message, but then when it's expressed, it creates this clash. So it's like, how the hell, why is that happening? Because there's an interference there, but it hides it behind a truth, you know, kind of thing, you know. So religion is and it's all about, also religion is about canceling self-reference in a way, and it's all about
yeah. God willing, I'll be able to do that. It's in God's hands. Yeah. I know. It's in God's hands. He said, it's just an anagram. It's really about dogs. It's all about, because dogs equal gods. God is God in the mirror. Yes. So we're looking at God here in the corner. Mr. Flippy Floppy Ears. He's okay.
Okay. Look, what I'm going to do is let's take a break. I'm going to, I'm not sure, I'm going to try get out and go back in and see if that way it could you know, stop having this interruptions going on, okay? So let's have a 10-minute break and come back again, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see now. One thing I'm noticing, I think I'm going to, for this module, just kind of explain the space organization of the frequencies, codes, or parameters, and maybe leave the time ones for the next module. So use a bit of the time in the next module, because if not, I think it'll be too much. So for now, let's just look at this, like the space organization, okay? So let me put the image of the, so we were seeing 1, we were seeing 7, 8, 9. So kind of like, you know, how they have these in the culture of the human culture there, how it expresses this these qualities of each of the numbers. Yeah. Now, if we take 4, now let's take the one in the middle. So we have 1, 7, 8, which connects them, 9, which is the purpose, like what for, why, what is the purpose of that connection, the direction, the finality, the, you know. Now 4 is going to be a connector. 4 is going to be like a intermediate between 7 and between 1. Yeah, in this area of, it's going to be the format, like the formats, the different formats, and 4 is mainly located in Europe. And the codes +4, Europe is mainly 3 and 4. Okay, so 4 is like the formats. Yeah, it's also 4. That position 4 is kind of like if it was a translator yeah? A translator between 7 and 1. If you see in the northern hemisphere, it's like in the middle there, yeah? So it's got Russia on one side, it's got America on the other side, and it's kind of like in the middle there. And so 4 is going to be like the designs, the format that's going to be used. So an example of this is like the democracy format. Most of the formats are kind of, they come out of this continent, don't they? Also, it's going to be 4 and 3. 3 has to do with neurological perception. Neurological perception. So the code 3 are going to be very good at using their, we could say in a way, their intellect. Yeah. So, like for example, the universities where like where knowledge, and the illustration and all that comes out of is Europe. And it comes out of Europe because it is connected to that parameter of the territory of the Earth. So there we have like the great formats and the neurological use of those formats. Yeah, but it's very much in a personal consciousness. Yeah, it's like 4 down, it's like in the personal consciousness. Yeah, in 4 up, it's more impersonal consciousness. Let me see. I'm struggling to understand how literally or metaphorically we should take this material. Country codes were assigned by people who were presumably ignorant of this material and not attempting to achieve any metaphysical goals. Were they unconsciously directed to assign? Yes, they are unconsciously directed to assign numbers as they did. Yeah, unconsciously directed. So because this is how it goes. Like, you consciously have a very small access of what's really going on. Like, let's take like an example of this. They say that, the brain is using a very slight percentage of its capacity. And there's all this other aspect of the brain that is being used, but we're not conscious of it. Yeah, this is another way of saying. So a lot of the things that we think that we are controlling and doing consciously, really, it's unconsciously being, most of it, it's unconsciously is moving us. It's like, for example, the moment where we have most brain activity is when we are asleep. And that's where the brain has, so what is that meaning? It's connecting with a lot of areas and dimensions that go beyond, because each human is like an antenna connected with the whole global brain. Like a cell in my body. Look, let me put it. A cell is being moved by the central nervous system. The central nervous system is giving it the signal. The cell isn't conscious, but it just feels like, okay, I want to go there. But you see, the what it's moving it is a lot of unconscious is moving that. This probably it's hard to see because we have this feeling that we are highly like participants of what we are doing and moving, and it really, it's like we are highly moved by the unconscious, highly moved. In the same way, an organism moves a cell or directs a cell. So these people who said this, they were not aware at all, but their unconscious was aware. You see, like, for example, your unconscious right now is controlling many different things of your body functions that you're not even aware of. You see, this is another example, is that the conscious aspect is very small, but it feels that it's very big. This is the problem of it. It feels that it is like the man, but it's not. it's very, very, very slight what it's actually been able to capture and see. Like the cells are doing millions of different things, of reactions and transformations, and your conscious is feeling that it is the, you know, like the chief commander, and it's not. It's just a little window through which you can consciously see. Okay, so no. It seems like it didn't solve the problem. So did you hear that? Humans they're not as in charge as they think they are, yeah? So there's a high level of, so there's a purpose that is much greater than what you can perceive moving you, okay? A much greater purpose than what you can perceive. What we can begin to do is become more, have a bigger, wide, or a bit more view of that. But the first thing that we have to do is realize that there is a global consciousness that is in charge of my particular consciousness. If I don't take that step, I'm not going to see, I'm just going to sophisticate what I can see in my conscious aspect, yeah? So, so the one in charge here is the earth, yeah? The one in charge is the earth, the global consciousness of the earth. We're just doing our part, yeah? And participating. And it's allowing us to see certain things through these type of tools, yeah? So then we have this like 4, which is this intermediate, yeah? Like if we take United Kingdom, which is 4-4, yeah? What is 4-4? It is the design which connects designs. It's like the format of formats. It's like the United Kingdom. It's like uniting all, and it's like establishing the connectivity between the designs. It is a bridge, yeah? It's a bridge. Now, when it's under the interference, okay, what it's going to do, instead of interconnecting the designs, it's going to want to control them. Okay, so this kind of the Commonwealth, you know, like English is the language. It's a language is a format, and English is the language with which we can understand each other. That has to do with this 4-4. You see, it's like the connector between designs, but designs, but it's the connector between designs. But what is moving those designs is not a design. It's not a format. It's not a relative position. It's a global consciousness. Global consciousness means it's not a format in the way that 4 is. Okay, so 4-4, yeah, which is like this. It's like the United Kingdom. It's like uniting those formats together. But it isn't the king. The king is the earth. It's not a format. You see? Okay. So one is this, you know, like this kind of imperialism thing, but it's their virtue, but used as a vice. It's like a virtue, but it's used as a vice. Okay. So it has that 4-4 thing. Like another one that you can see very well is Germany. Germany is 4-9. Okay, 4-9. If you see 4-9, it's a design and its purpose. What is it for? It's like a design and a purpose. So what is that designed for? What is that format for? You see? And that's what Germans do very good. They make very functional tools. For is a tool. For is a tool, a format, a function. You see? So we have for is what connects the tools together, but as tools. Yeah? It's like the tool of tools. That's 44. It's like a tool of tools. You know? So 49 is it makes it work. It makes it work. It makes it work. Yeah. Okay. Of course, there's much more countries. Of 31, which is Holland. There's a lot of people of 31. They can have an idea and put it into practice. It's like they can have an idea and put it into reality. There's a saying in Holland, which I thought was really interesting, which is something like, God made the world, but Holland was made by the Dutch people, something like that. Isn't that right? Is it? Because they kind of created it out of the mud, you know? So what they are very good, it's like they're very good at putting that idea into reality. 31. They see it in their mental thing, and they can execute it. They can do it. You know, they can. Germany makes the design work. See, so there's difference in that 4-3. There are different aspects that make it work all together as a European Union. Okay, as a European Union, it allows the whole thing to work. Good. Now we have 2, which is Africa. 2 is, what is 2? Is like energy and movement. It's like the rhythm. It's like it takes it's also another thing, resources. 2 is concrete resources. Yeah, that it's like the circuits that connect things, like the resources. But also it's like that vibration, energy and movement. It's like the drum. It's like the doom, 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 doom. It's like that rhythm that is moving consciousness. Doom, 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 doom. And it is what has the circuits for that mind to put it into practice. But how do we understand this? Exploitation of resources. Okay, well, that is dysfunctional way of seeing it. So 2 has because you see, how do you put something into reality? Like, okay, so you have an idea, but then you need the circuits. You need the energy to put it into a reality. So you have 3, you have 1. Okay, I'm missing 2, so I take it from 2. Instead of communicating with 2, you know, like in an interconnectivity, I'm not sure if you can see this. Instead of the codes interconnecting, what they're doing is taking advantage in a way. This is the interference. You see? This is the interference. Now, 5. Latin America. This is what 5 has. It has, we normally call 3 concrete consciousness or personal consciousness, like individual consciousness. 5 is impersonal consciousness. It is like an impersonal logic. It's what we call the it's like that unconscious which is articulating my conscious. So let's put an example. 3-1, a person from Holland has an idea, but they think that idea comes from them. No, it comes from the unconscious. It doesn't come from them. Your ideas are not your ideas. Your ideas are thoughts of the Earth, global consciousness, which is transferred into your neurological perception. So there's no such thing as my idea. What you are doing is like an antenna capped. You are able to tune in, and that idea comes into your neurological perception. So it's not your idea. It's like copyright thing. You see, that's what when personal consciousness is disconnected from impersonal consciousness, it's going to have this way of thinking. It's going to think it's like, I'm such a creative mind. You know, no, you have a capture of the global consciousness. Like good musicians know this, like, or artists, they know, they know that idea didn't come from them. It was just donated in a way. It was just, they were able to capture the, you know, they had the antenna to capture it. It's like saying that the song of the radio belongs to the radio. The song of the radio doesn't belong to the radio. The radio was able to tune in. Three is a tune in. It tunes in to a global consciousness, which is 5. So it's a tuner. You see that difference? Okay, and what is 4? 4 is a kind of translator. It's like a decoder. Okay, so 7, global. What is the consciousness of 7? 5. 1, particular. What is the consciousness of 1? 3. And how does 3, a personal consciousness, communicate with an impersonal consciousness? 4, a format, a translator, a converter. Yeah? So now we have, it's like, I'm not sure if you know about Latin America, but Latin America is very much kind of, they connect they have a very big trust in invisible deities kind of thing. This is still an interference, but they know that there is an invisible, because 5 is not a brain consciousness. 5 is a brainless consciousness. Very important. This is a very important difference. Because brain is a tuner. It's not the origin. And this is the typical era of science. Where does science come from? Europe. Because they have a personal way of seeing consciousness. This is breaking down because things are interconnecting now. But it's like they take the antenna as the origin of the message. And the origin was a wavelength thing. It was 5, it was intangible, you see? So 5 is like a brainless consciousness. So for example, let's take this in the culture of Latin America. There's a lot of belief in like a deity, you know, like even they understand that they're not under control, that there is another intelligence that is moving their intelligence. But the distortion is they don't see it as the earth consciousness. They provide it to some sort of, you know, like a virgin or whatever, okay? Now let's take Argentina, because Argentina is a very important code. Okay, 55.4. It is the unconscious of the design. It's the unconscious of, so this is impersonal, and this is the design. And this is like in Argentina, it's like they are obsessed with like psychoanalysis. You know, in Argentina, they say everybody here is a psychologist, psychoanalysis. Why? Because they're always trying to see the unconscious of the design. They don't, like what you're saying in your words, they know that there's something behind it. So they're trying to see, what's the unconscious behind what you're saying? You know? So there's a joke, you know, everyone is going with Freud books under there, you know? And another joke is that the Argentinians were the ones that understood Freud better than Freud. Okay, so 5 has this kind of impersonal consciousness, okay? And if we see in the calculator, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 is an articulator between absolute and particular. And it's articulating left and right. It's like in the center. It's the logic which is articulating everything. Okay. So the thing is, like, what is the purpose? And according to that purpose, this is going to articulate the logic which connects the synchronization of that purpose with the rest of them. So it's how could I say? It's like how could I say it? Like the architect kind of way of seeing it. Are you guys seeing where I'm taking, like what is this? And what's interesting is like it's 1 United States, you know, and then 5 is under there, yeah, like sustaining it, like the unconscious of the individual, yeah, like the logic, the impersonal logic is sustaining that individual or that individuality. So all this is now I'm talking about the cultural expression in humans. Why? Because that's where we can understand, you know, that's where we can kind of grasp it. But there's much more to them, yeah, because it belongs to the parameter of the territory of Earth, and that is transferred to the different designs. We are a human, and as humans we express it. But because there's a disconnect between the impersonal consciousness and the personal consciousness. So it's like when the song, the wavelength comes to my radio says, this is my song. I created it. And someone's going to say, no, it's you tuned in to a wavelength. No, this is mine. I came up with the idea. It's like, no. You see, you tuned into the idea. And when you tuned into the idea, you're able to emit it. You're able to provide the song for everyone. Because people can't hear it when it's in wavelength. It needs to go into, you know, into an antenna and emit it. So it's like the personal consciousness is confused. And this has to do also with Cuba. Cuba is 53. It is the impersonal consciousness and the personal consciousness, okay? But it's locked. It's like castrated. Castration. There's a castration. There's like something that is not. They blocked in that. It's not fluid. It's not fluid. You know, like the impersonal consciousness and the personal consciousness. It's like it's crystallized. It's set. It's fixed. It's not allowed. They call it the revolution, but revolution is new. But in Cuba, nothing's new. It's always the same thing. Right, let's see. How it works when you're born in one country and live in another. Okay, now let's go with that. Okay, more or less like Australia 6, well, Australia, Southeast Asia is kind of like the potentials. The potentials. What I like, it's like a cooking pot of potentials in that area, and those potentials it have like all the ingredients there, you know, all the ingredients there to be used, but the potentials are being kind of left on one side in a way, yeah. But wait, let's go with what Gavi was saying there. And she said, if you born, first of all, if you born on a territory, look, there's something about that territory that is going to be, you know, in a way that a plant, when it's planted in a land, it absorbs the nutrients of that land, you know, independently. Like, for example, the chilies in Mexico are spicy, but not because the chilies are spicy, it's because of the land. So when they take those seeds and they plant it into Spanish soil, for example, it's spicy in the first generation, but in the second and the third, it loses the spice because it absorbs the nutrients of the territory. Yeah. So where you born, okay, is important. Where you are born is important on how that parameter of the earth has configured your cell. Is it also important, like your genetic pool and all this? Yes, but it's like the same way with the seed. It's like, yes, it's going to be a chili, no matter if it's in Argentina, in Mexico, or in Spain. But it's not only about that. It's also about the transference from the land, the territory. Okay. So where you are born, there's a transference there. Now, what happens? You're born there, you live there, but then you go to another place. Well, what begins to happen? You begin to talk with that frequency, but you still have a position in your original configuration. It's like, I am a person, for example, who's very calm, okay? My natural tendency is calm. But when I'm with somebody who's very he's tense, I'm not a tense person, but when I'm with someone, I'm communicating with someone who's tense, I begin to become tense because I'm not isolated from the world. But my natural personality profile it's to be calm. You see, but that is like, okay, one thing is that calmness, but it doesn't mean that I can't get agitated. And what agitates me, it depends on what, you know, I'm talking with in my surroundings. Nobody is calm in Argentina. Yeah, it's because it's like the unconscious of the design. Okay, they say that Argentinians can sell anything, like they can sell glasses to a blind man, you know, like, because when you're selling a product, do you think marketing goes for your rational, conscious, neurological perception? Do you think they're aiming to that? No, they're aiming for your unconscious. They're not aiming for your conscious. They are hitting you in the blind spot because that's where you are actually processing information. Like, they're not going to explain to you rationally what a beautiful car it is. No, they're going to hit you. They're going to try to get you in the unconscious, in the logic which is behind the purpose of your you know. So you want to be seen as a successful man with a lot of women. Okay, well, I'm going to hit there, but I'm going to sell you a car. They're not going for this three. The three is like a kind of like rational perception with arguments and you know, like, okay, this is that, this is that. But is that what is moving us? It's not that limited brain who can tell a story. That's just that's a capturing of it. Okay, so Argentinian people, what they know how to do is go through the blind spot and they sell you the product. They go for the blind spot, they sell you the product, but they don't know that. They just have the natural capacity to do that. Okay, of course, this is a dysfunctional use. Okay, another thing that happens in South America, okay, is it's this use of the unconscious, in a way. But Argentinians are especially good because the unconscious of your identity. So they're gonna aim at where your identity is being configured, but your identity can't see. Yeah, so it's gonna hit you there. It's like Maradona is gonna use the hand where 44 couldn't see it, and he's gonna put the hand there. Yeah, and he's gonna score the goal. So it's like cheating, but that is a way of using it. Okay, so don't confuse the instrument with the way of using the instrument. I'm just giving analogies for us to kind of see it. Yeah? And then you begin to see where you're born, the relationships. You see through the numbers that we are interconnected. Yeah. It's going to give you a stop share there. Like the people that you meet, you think you choose them, but that's the typical way the personal consciousness it is. That I'm choosing this one I like, this one I don't. But there's something else making like you tuning into that other level, which is making really that decision. Yeah, and well, let me give an example with me and Carla. Okay. I know I can't really give this now because I have to explain the time frequencies. Yeah. Because okay, you begin to see that when in your relationships with the numbers are like fractals, little fractal, domestic fractals of what's happening in a more global scale a lot of times, of the interrelationships that are occurring. Because of this fractal sequence that is occurring. That's not only geometrical, it's also consciousness. Consciousness has this fractal way of organizing, yeah, the thing. So, for example, in my relationship with Carla, and probably I'll use the examples when I explain the time parameters. There is a lot of things that connect us, and I can see it in the numbers, the kind of what's behind it. I know David didn't choose to be with Carla. I didn't choose it. In the same way, two cells that meet and all that, they don't choose it. The organisms are choosing it. What I am becoming aware is why that was chosen through me, meaning I'm seeing it from a more global position and personal. I'm seeing why the brainless consciousness was using my brain consciousness, 5-3, to move me and to connect with this person, connect with this person, connect with this person. There's no like, it's not by chance. But the personal consciousness thinks that things are by chance. That's, if you see this documentary, this series documentary, One Strange Rock, it's like, wow, how could all this coincidences come together and create this perfect like balance that Earth has? Is that it's not coincidences. The thing is that you can't see global consciousness, so you think it's coincidences. You think that consciousness only happens in the brains of things. So you don't Oh, okay, back again. Last words. You already had it prepared. You just think consciousness happens in a brain consciousness. Okay, yeah. This is this is mainly where we are as humanity. But I think it's breaking down, like, because there's been a disconnect between, look, it's like, let's take 7 global, 1 particular, and 4 is like a format that's translating, okay? Now here, this is impersonal area, impersonal or brainless consciousness, and this is personal consciousness. Yeah. There's, in a way, 4 has been interfered in a way. Oof. Back again. Okay. Impersonal, personal. Look, this is over here. We lost sign.
David,
Sorry?
we lost you with 4 has been interfered with.
Okay, yeah, 4 has been interfered with. So the identity, the design, and the interference is the identity thinks that it is, let's see how I can say it, like it thinks that it's 7. So it like 4 takes itself to be 7. So it tries to just defend its identity like if it was a global consciousness. So that's why each group is self-protecting, but this is beginning to break down. I think it's very obvious how this is breaking down, you know? And this is how this disconnect is being used with, okay, personal, here science works. Everything I see, I touch, and but what you see, what you touch is a fraction of reality. You can't reduce reality. You have to take that into consideration. But in personal, here we put religion and mysticism and something, you know, heaven, like out there. And you see, and there's a disconnect between both. It's like if they're talking, like if they belong to different worlds. But you see that science is focused on on what they can consciously access. But here you know, like, and which is all good, but they're trying to reduce everything to what they can access. Making them see Earth as one strange rock. It's like the only reason you see it as one strange rock because you can't see the global brain behind it. That's why you see it as one strange rock. So this impersonal and the personal, this is what, so this 8 is being kind of blocked and 7 is being fighting with 1, you know? But now slowly, you know, in different ways, we're beginning to see that things are interconnecting. And so 4 has appropriated the creation of 7. Really 4, okay, the poor guy, the poor dimension is being used through like 4, the identity is, it doesn't really, it's unconscious the way that it's being used, you know? You know these identities that just suddenly, they don't know why, but they want to mass murder things, and it's like, really there's an innocence behind there. It's not like they chose to be a rapist. I chose to do that today, to just rape people. It's not, it doesn't work. There's something in the unconscious there that's being using that identity that way. Because there's a perverted purpose in it. So if we like at the end, where it is inoculated is more in 9, in the purpose. And the purpose, 9, which is 6 the other way around, is using a logic for that purpose, that distorted purpose, and that is configuring the design to act with that distortion. And suddenly wants to rape and do things like that, you know?
David, can I just clarify something? So doesn't that have to do, like, you know, when somebody like has this, you know, they don't wake up in the morning saying I'm deciding to be a mass murderer, but doesn't that have something to do with what that person is tuning into? Like, you know, we keep saying that, you know, we tune into these certain aspects of the unseen or the whole, and it works through us as a tool, as an expression. Don't we have some like decision in that? Isn't that like kind of like a decision on some aspects? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. This is the thing, that it's the decision we have is not, we can't control it by will. This is something that is important. We can't control that by will. All these people who like mass murderers, or like very kind of weird, twisted psychos, yeah. Whenever you listen to an interview with them, like when they honestly talking, yeah, they like, I don't know why I do it. It's not under my control. They try to control it with their will. Yeah, so the thing is tuning into a different dial is not controlling it. So, but at the same time, there has to be people who tune into it. Why? To express it. Why? For us to see it. But the way that we see it is, instead of taking that and, let's say, taking that distorted pervert, instead of seeing it dismantling within us, what we do is what Alejandra calls black mirror. She says instead of making it white, activating as something lucid within. So that person is showing us something. And if we can make it, you know, a white in the sense of make it lucid and within, but that means I have to see it within. I have to dismantle it within. When I don't do that, I project my blind spot and I do a black mirror. Like, have you seen the series Black Mirror? It's very interesting because it's like this incapacity of seeing something within me, and I project it in my blind spot. I project it. So I hate him because I can't see it in me. I can't enlighten myself in it. So, like, for example, let me put an example. So there's a truth in I can tune into something different, but there are, let's say, Earth does use some people that they're not going to have a decision. Because there hasn't been a dosified maturing of the people, they have no control. Yeah. Okay. In a way. But let me take this example. They did a study, okay, with people who really hated homosexuals, and they belonged to groups against homosexuality, like a sin and all that. And then they did a study, like they put images of different kind of pornography, and they are the ones that were most excited with homosexual pornography. This is the thing. It's like when I can't see it, when there's something saying you don't have that, you project it as a black mirror, you see? But the only thing you project is your incapacity of seeing yourself. You see? So you project your blind spot in a way. Yeah. Definitely when we seeing these codes, we seeing it very much in how the
You just said it all, Susan.
Oh, it goes on, doesn't it?
Yes.
That was very interesting. Is that Therese that was speaking before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was very
Therese.
interesting what you were saying, Therese, because I was thinking, if that's a lack of consciousness, does that person have no responsibility? And is this what we're calling all our mental health crisis?
Right. I would speculate.
Well, he's talking about how there's a purpose for it, you know, particularly, you know, that we, it's there for us to see. So it is part of the global interference in a sense for consciousness in order for us to see and make comparison and go, oh, well, and that, and then there comes the decision, I suppose, right?
But I do think in the macro, there is a personal responsibility still. You're just acquiescing to whichever way the wind is blowing, essentially.
Yes, so in a way, I mean, was David saying the person has no concept of what they're doing, or actually are they acting completely unconsciously?
Yeah.
And then that's why we're saying they have mental health issues, which is a crisis in this country anyway.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, I think if a person lives in Great Britain, they can see this kind of something is not working in a way that with this, the design trying to control all the aspects of life, you know, that kind of, they haven't got that capacity, you know. A design can't manage all the things that the global brainless consciousness does. So the mental also illnesses, I believe, are disconnects between impersonal and personal. It's like and you know, something also what happens with crazy people in a way that I see a lot of times. When you talk with crazy people, when you get to know crazy people, what you notice about them that they are very transparent. They're very they're very honest. There's something about them that is like very because it's like if it's because the problem with antennas, okay, let's say this. Let's say we have 7 in a way here. Let's put 7 here in a moment. Yeah, we have the antenna 1, but then we have the design 4. The 4 which is translating this connectivity. Yeah, and this 4 is doing like this interference thing. So it's blocking. Okay. Now, so if we have this antenna is blocking, 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 but this antenna is open, all this that is not being expressed is going to be expressed through this one. And the intensity makes it go crazy. It's like a volcano. It's like if lava has to come out, but it's being blocked. And it finds one like volcano that is open, and well, the lava is just going to spit through it. So it's like there's a great innocence behind those people who express the great distortions. Is a great innocence, and because it's just where it found the way of express, because the interference has to be expressed. When you express it in more levels, it dosifies. It's like a dosis. It doesn't have to be expressed through one crazy son of a bitch, you know, like it dosifies. When it's like if you take you know, poison, but if you put it in a small quantity, it becomes an antidote. Okay, because what we have to do with the interference isn't vomit it. We have to eat it for it to become an antidote. It's like that, and we have to express it, allow it to be expressed, allow us to be channels where that it can be expressed. But if I can express it, but I'd be conscious that I'm expressing it, I can dosify it, you know? I can do it a bit more consciously, in a way. So look, at the end, this ended up being more about talking about the interference and all that, but definitely there's an interference. There's something that is not organic going on here, like, you know, mass murders and war. There's something that something knows that that has an interference. But it's not baddie, I'm going to punish you. It's like, I want to see you. I want to see it because there's something there that it belongs to all of us, you know. And, you know, for example, Germany 49, it's what makes the designs work. It's like what makes the designs work. But if the design thinks that it is 7, because this is what a distorted 4 wants to become 7. It wants to become a global consciousness. It wants to control everything. But what happens is that is going to end up in self-destruction, because 4 can never be 7. So one design wants to control the rest, and it's going to self-destruct. It's like if my liver wants to become my whole body, it's going to self-destruct the whole thing. My liver has to understand that it's a design, it's a format belonging to the whole organism. And this is the kind of thing that it's beginning to dawn on us. So like a kind of international, interconnected consciousness. But this is going to be very slow, you know, like, and it's not going to happen. It's going to happen through individual, real people like us becoming aware of it. It's not like some president is going to become, oh shit, we're all interconnected. It's going to happen through real individual people, like in doses, in small doses, becoming aware of it. And being able to not hide the interference, but allow it to be expressed. So allow the conflict to be expressed, because when the conflict is expressed, you can see what before was a blind spot. So it's not Black Mirror. It's not projection of the blind spot. It's an enlightenment. Yeah? It's like it enlightens you so the conflicts enlighten you instead of you project a Black Mirror. You know, so is that why people are so fascinated by psychopaths? And what I think I'm for, because they're trying to understand themselves, a very deep level of themselves that is kind of, you know, okay, this can't be, yeah, because they're trying to understand the interference that is within them, you know, because it's there. Just like a psychopath is just in a very, very like high tune, but it's there, you know. So I think what these people do, because look, one psychopath like Ted Bundy or one of these guys, how many millions of people have seen an expression of one guy? So it's like a huge projection that we can all see, and it can help us to kind of say, okay, but this is actually happening, but we still kind of take it, you know, the Black Mirror. It's like the accusing finger kind of thing. You know, it's like, okay, he should be punished for his sins and all this kind of thing. We don't take it as, what is this guy telling us? Like, what is the unconscious message behind here? What is it's like with a very clear one is the church, you know, like sexual repression means equals connection with the divine. Because there's this disconnect. It's like that which is earth, like sex, it's like earth energy or whatever, that is like bad. You have to be this elevated energy thing. You see this disconnect between heaven and earth, between the abstract, the concrete, the personal, impersonal, like if they belong in different worlds, you know, but no, they're just different dimensions of the same reality. That's what's kind of dawning on us, you know. And so you have this religion saying, okay, sex is this, it has to be repressed. You know, whenever you have sex, repress it. It's the demon, it's the evil coming out of you. So you got all these people repressing, and suddenly you got, at one moment, that is you can't, you know, because they can't see it, then you're going to have suddenly, wow, why is there so many pedophiles related with this religion? Well, instead of accusing the pedophiles, maybe try and understand what the hell is the logic behind this. What is the impersonal telling the personal, you know? Could it be that we have to have a different perspective on sex? Could it be something to do with that? More than punish. I'm not saying that these guys that can't control their sexual impulses, there has to be something that contains them, you know, like, but there has to be a different level of us seeing what's behind that. You know, and just sending him to jail, the problem doesn't, or killing the person, or the problem isn't solved, not even close. Because the problem is a logical structure. It's the logical structure of the identity. And this logic of identity responds to a purpose. What is the purpose? Is the purpose to twist and distort the natural function of space-time, making designs see each other as enemies instead of different aspects of connectivity? So, well, basically, the idea, okay, is that each area of the territory of the superficie that we are has an expression of the consciousness of Earth, like the points on the brain. If you're born in that point, that is going to be transferred to that quality, yeah? And the way that we can see it, the instrument that we have, and it's, if you give it time and you look at it, and you see how it has the very big coherency on what it's saying about the world, is this international telephone codes, which is the sun talking with this earth through each of its aspects, yeah? This plus 0, 0, yeah? Talking with each of its aspects. And I just kind of gave some examples to see it, but there are many others also. Yeah. Wait, let's see. That's like a pun in a way. Like, look, if you see India, it's 9-1 India. India is like a purpose that is moving an individual. It's like a condition. You see, it's like you condition in a way, yeah. So you born in this family, you are this way. You're born in this family, you're done this way, yeah. And they say that most of all the source of all religion is India, yeah. Like the source of all the, even where the Judaism came from and all that, Christianism and Muslim is basically from that point. Yeah? So it's like this direction. Which is the direction? Which is the direction? So if the direction, the purpose is distorted, the whole thing is like, it's like the direction. Look, we all have a different musical instrument. Okay, 9 is like saying, what is the song? 9 is saying, what is the song? And each of us are playing our own parts to that song. If 9 is distorted, the song sounds like, because there's no coordination between the violins and the sax or whatever the different instruments are. It's like they're not coordinated together. So it sounds like, oh, there's something, because 9 is actually, in a way, yeah. It's distorting. It's saying each 4 is going to be independent, and they're not going to be playing for the same song. No, they're going to be playing different. They're going to be playing their instruments, but not connected with the other instruments in a way. So a lot of people maybe would say, okay, so like, what is the origin of this distortion? Like, who is it? What is it? And this is the kind of phrase I always say, that if you have to blame something, blame nothing, because it's nothingness. initiates these kind of explorations, but it has a purpose. And the way to see it, maybe in global it's hard, but in your life, when somebody has actually been an interference for you, and you were able to not only just blame, accuse, and kick that person out of your house, which, okay, there is a moment for doing that or whatever, but there's another aspect of you that was able to take that poison and it became an antidote, and it increased your, not only your levels of nutrients of the world, it actually expanded you. It helped you to expand, to understand yourself better, to understand how you work, how you don't work, which is your position, what is not your position. So it's like, in a weird way, you say, I'm thankful to the guy who's a piece of shit, but I'm thankful. Okay, that is it. It's like, behind that interference, there is a purpose. There's something that makes sense. But we see it kind of, once we've swallowed the interference and it made us a bit sick, and then it made us stronger, then it's like, now I get why, stronger or more expanded or more wise, whatever you want to call it. And without these challenges, and interference is the self-made challenge of the origin. That's an interference. It's a self-made challenge of the origin. Because without challenges, there's no expansion. Expansion or expansion of consciousness needs challenges. And the only way of challenging yourself is putting an interference there. So in the big scheme, it's all kind of okay. Can the challenge end up in self-destruction? Yes. But still, that self-destruction in the big scheme of things, it's okay, it didn't work. It's like, but when we play in the game, we're going to do everything we can to make it work. We're going to do it to our last breath. This is not a real, okay, because it doesn't matter if there's an abortion. No, but your body's going to do everything it can to have that baby. Everything. It's going to do everything it can. But if there's an abortion at the end, well, okay, in the big scheme, nothing and everything reorganizes, and okay, let's try something else. But it's what I'm trying to say there. It's not a reason to do this. And this is not an excuse to do this. We have to do everything we can within my own life. With the challenges that come, I have to do everything I can for that challenge to expand me instead of destroy me. Because this is what the interference can do. It can expand or can explode. This is like the two destinations of the, but what the interference can't do is dominate. It can't do that. It's just not going to do that. It can't dominate. It has like a credit, like a credit. It has like a credit, and there's a moment that the universal bank is going to say, the credit is up to here. So the interference it's like a parasite, you see? A parasite, it says, oh, good, I'm eating a lot of things in this body, but when it kills the body, it kills itself. See, that's also the thing. It's like, it's not going to be able to dominate space-time. It's going to be used by space-time, but you're never going to have a situation where the interference is controlling space-time. It's not going to happen. Because challenges are there to expand the awareness of nothingness, which becomes everythingness through each thing. Through each one, And 7 and 1 have to begin to see, oh, USA, Russia, well, okay, we're part of the same thing. Put in. And the other one's going to say, okay, but see your ass, Trump. Well, C is 21. I try my best at giving an explanation of this, but really this is something that if you want to learn this language, this is like learning a language. First, if you want to take it or not take it, it's like an app. It's like an app. If you want to download this app, good. You don't want it, you're not interested, perfect, it's all good. If you do want to download it, you have to give it time, to understand how it works, the app. And it's like learning a new language. So it's like you have to give it time and see if it gives a wider meaning to your relationship with the structure of life. Does it increase the meaning you can see? Then take it. It doesn't, but you have to give time. See, if you have the resonance first. If not, why are you going to download an app? First you're interested in an app, you download it, and then you learn how to use it. But to learn how to use it, it's like you have to give it time, and you have to see how it expresses. Yeah. And probably a very good way is to see how it expressed through where you live, your native country, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, look, another example of this confusion of the personal trying to control the impersonal, is this kind of, trying to manipulate with genetic stuff, and we don't see that there's a wider intelligence that has created that gene to be that way in that specific way, but we're like adapting it for us. It's like the earth is there to serve us. It's like the earth is our resource. That isn't interference. It's the other way around. It's like 4 is saying, 7, you there to serve me. And 7 is saying, no, you there to serve me. Okay, it's not like, it's like the lung saying to the whole organism, give me what I desire. I don't care about the rest. This is to give me and it's like the organism saying, look, I think you got a confusion there. You think that your identity is the global position, and it's not. You are a social worker. You're not the whole country, you're a social worker. So, that there's those confusions going on. But the more that they go on and they express, the more clear it's going to become that we are not under control. Our identity is not under control, and we are a role of Earth consciousness. We're not the main player. We're not the guy leading the situation. We are a cell which has a function as kind of like a nervous system, a peripheral nervous system, but we're not the ones in charge. Yeah? So I think that's going to change the whole. See, that's the logic. First, what is the purpose? According to that purpose, we're going to have a logic. And according to that logic, that's how the identities are going to connect. Yeah? So if the purpose is for them to fight, or to like a twisted, the logic is just going to do that. It's just going to express that in a way. Yeah. So I think that's enough for today. I think we've gave a kind of a general sense of this, like numbers in the telephone codes, and the way that the telephone codes are giving us keys to understand the parameters of the earth and how they function differently. And the differences of their functionality have to do with different functions of the, so it's not another example of interference. It's like saying extermination of a race. Okay, that's a clear example. Like, okay, I have to 49, Germany. This idea that I'm the one controlling all the designs. I'm the one that, you know, manages the purpose of the design. So I have to, I'm going to try, you know, I'm the, you know, the pure race kind of thing. And this is not, you see, it's a distortion that is, they receive and act it out. And it's making the design function to, what is the function of the design? Connecting 7 with 1. Okay. In a weird way, in Second World War, they did that in a weird way. Okay, so you see that thing of I want to exterminate a race. Well, this also has to do with Israel, which is 972. Okay, now when you begin to see this, there's a whole story, and you say, okay, why did 49 want to exterminate 972? What is 972? You know, it's like the purpose that 7 puts into the circuits, you know? So it's not allowing 49 to do its function. So instead of seeing that, it wants to exterminate it in a way. So let's leave it there, okay? Let it sink in and maybe just kind of see the frequencies of where you were born or where you live and see if it kind of makes sense, you know. This is all about learning a new language, and you know the pronunciation maybe is not perfect at the beginning, or I'm not sure if I'm reading well this or whatever. But don't trust your intellect when you're reading it. Trust something. Allow your intellect to be a way of translating it, but trust something deeper. You know, go to a different area of your consciousness to see it. Yeah, because it's more, you're trying to like intellectualize it, you're not going to see it. Yeah? And it's kind of like more you trying to read a number comes and says, look at me, look at me, look at me. So the number comes to you, you don't go to the number. Now that's another way of seeing it. And in the next module, let's look at the space-time. Sorry, the space-time. I think I'm kind of, my brain consciousness is tired, so I'm going to give it to the brainless. Well, when you do this whole meditation thing, okay, or you silence the kind of 3, what you also like allowing 5 to filter through. Now that's why a lot of these great thinkers is like, there's like Einstein kind of thing. He said, I didn't try to solve the problem, I just saw that I was stuck. And what I did, I stopped thinking, played my violin for a while, meaning I silenced the interpreter, and suddenly the answer came to me. So it filtered through. And Einstein even said emptiness. He actually used the word emptiness, kind of just, now I can see it clear. Okay, because there was a space in the design, in a way, between the personal and the personal. So where the personal got stuck, he said, okay, I'm stuck here. Then personal filtered through the next level it could see. And it's like, okay. So that's why a lot of people use these kind of mechanisms of silencing as a way of getting that, silencing the tuning in or the radio, and you know, it comes in that wavelength, if you want. But you have to be clear what wavelength you want to connect with. Which is the emitter. So yeah, so we choose an emitter as Earth consciousness with my particle, Sun consciousness with my particle, and in the background, nothingness through everything and everything, every little thing. Yeah. So. Anyone want to speak there? See? Would you say Trump is an interference? No, Trump is you see, Trump is expressing, this is what I see about the American president, is that they express in a synthesized way the state of human consciousness. Okay? And you say, well, Obama, he was brilliant, he was lovely. Yeah, but you see, one is what are you showing and what are you hiding? That's what you have to ask one. What are you showing and what are you hiding? Because one is not always giving you, like you seeing something, but they're hiding something else. So what you prefer to have in one is an immature, honest person than a mature, civilized, but not that honest, you know? That's how I kind of feel. I feel I prefer people to be immature with me, but honest. In one, when expressing their one, I want to see where they are, and I want to show them where I am at, and you know, and not hide. I have to go. Looking forward to discussing this in more detail in the module review. Perfect, guys. I think it is time to kind of wrap it up. And well, this is something that if you download this app and you begin to pay attention to it, it does open a lot of, it is a whole, it's a good tool to have it. It's like a new language that you can speak with space-time, and space-time can speak with you, you know? And it's a different perspective of that language, which is very interesting. And there's a lot to reveal, I feel. We still like baby steps with it. So yeah, so I think let's just leave it there. And also, I didn't talk too much about how numbers are expressed through language also, but maybe we can see that. Probably it was a bit ambitious trying to put it all together in one module, I'm starting to realize. So actually, maybe there was a reason there was an 8th module there, synchronizing the other ones. Yeah? So, well, thanks a lot, guys. I'll be sending you the recording. And well, the good thing with the recording is that because there's been a lot of like blocks going in between the communication between the personal and the personal. So you can just kind of see it as a whole back at home, okay? So thanks a lot for being open to this, because I guess this is something very, very new, and it requires a bit of openness, you know? Let's see if we can talk a bit more about the way that this is also expressed in time. Time meaning the when, not the where, okay? The when you are born, the moment we are living, and that's also important to take into consideration. Yeah? So thanks a lot, guys. Have a good month and all that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent. There's not going to be any images. Probably I'll send you guys the one of the Earth with the codes. It's a good way of seeing, you know, the distribution of the codes, and probably there will be more questions related with this, and we can look into it. Okay. It's very hard actually. Like to try explain this is very hard. You know, it's like finding the wording is very hard, very challenging, but it's good. A good challenge. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Is het nou volgende keer niet? Jawel. Maar dan, hij zou